everyone. Thank you so much for attending my talk today. Before we start, I would like to start off with a land acknowledgement that we are on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Creek, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, Hausane, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations and people, and that we all benefit from the events that have occurred in history. And I would like to start. So, thank you for coming to my talk, an introduction to web accessibility. My name is Jim Lee. I am the founder of Single Technologies Limited. Today I'm just going to be going over web accessibility, what web accessibility looks like, and how to include it in your day. And if you're unsure of how to start, So, the power of the web is in its universality. Access by everyone, regardless of disability, is an essential aspect. When building for the web, we should try to be as inclusive as possible. This quote is by Tim Berners-Lee, the W3C director, which is the World Wide Web Consortium. And they set standards for accessibility, internationalization, security, and privacy. Who am I? And why am I standing in front of you today? I am a VHS trusted tester. I'm also the founder and principal consultant in web accessibility at my company. I'm a drummer, and I have 2 cats and an owl. As you can see, Ed's head is buried into the pillow. Now, from my perspective, I am seeing that the screen is a little dim. Most of my slides will look like this, so there will be some text and maybe a picture of some icons. Most of them are decorative, however, if they do need some explanation, I will go into explaining them. But for the sake of time, I will skip over the decorative ones. Why do we care about web accessibility? It's the right thing to do. We should try and build inclusively. We should care about the way that we build and how people interact with our applications. It is also the law. So, the Accessible Canada Act, which was implemented in 2019, imposes regulations on how accessibility should be involved in your application. And if you're from the United States, or you've worked with the United States or Europe, you'll also know that Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act takes into account web accessibility, and the GDPR, or the General Data Protection Regulation, really operates a lot in the United States. In the European Union. And accessibility is essential for developers and organizations wanting high-quality websites and web tools. So what is web accessibility? We are talking specifically when websites and applications are designed to meet the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Right? Websites, tools, and technologies are designed and developed so that people with disabilities can use them. And there are 4 principles. You'll see here on the right-hand side, I have a circle with 4 different quadrants, and at the center of them is the WCAG, which stands for the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. The quadrants are perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. So when your applications meet those 4 criteria, it's considered accessible and meets the standards. So perceivable is when people can see or hear and interact with and perceive your application. Operable specifically means can they operate it using other modes rather than just a keyboard and mouse. Understandable is when you are using, is the language that you are using plain and simple for people to understand. And robust is can it work across different browsers, different technologies, and can withstand time as technology advances. So I mentioned the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, and these are at the center of all accessible applications. They were developed by the World Wide Web Consortium in 1994 and have been worked on since. They are a technical standard ensuring web accessibility. And it comes with 3 different success criteria. First one being A, which is a basic and minimum level of conformance. Double A, which is the standard to try and achieve, which addresses the biggest barriers to accessibility. And then you're going to see triple A, which is a comprehensive standard. It's not required for full compliance because a lot of the requirements are quite difficult to meet or require some form of studying and really trying to get there. So, what are the benefits of applying web accessibility to building your applications? Well, it provides opportunities for growth, for individuals and for organizations, for a sense of belonging, so people can also feel like they can use your application without having to change the way that they operate the web too much. Flexibility without penalty lets you get creative as an organization or as an individual and also still remain within rules and regulations. It enhances engagement. When people are not faced with barriers when using your application, they will engage with your content or with your product more. And again, it eliminates barriers. The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines will give you ways to remediate your applications in order to meet these standards, and they help prepare for an aging workforce. So I'm sure a lot of us have heard it, and well, depending on what province you come from, and also worldwide, you will notice that we have an aging workforce, and it helps prepare us for that. And what are the risks of excluding accessibility from your development or from your design? Well, first and foremost, they prevent people who have and live with a disability from working on your application or working on your design. It prevents employees from doing their jobs. So this really is in particular when people may face temporary disabilities. So for those of us who are right-handed, sometimes we might not be able to use our right hands because of a strained wrist, and so we operate computers differently now. Can the application accommodate for that? It prevents members of the public from accessing vital information. So if people can't perceive your information, if they can't access your information, and some information is vitally important, people won't get access to that. And reworking a product for accessibility down the line is a much more expensive endeavor than introducing it from the very beginning. A lot of us are familiar with the term tech debt. And accessibility usually is a big source of tech debt, especially as more regulations come into play. So who is responsible for web accessibility? Well, everyone involved in the process, right? So when I speak web accessibility, I am specifically talking about technology its main purpose is to transmit information or to communicate information. So when everyone is involved in developing, procuring, maintaining, and using internet communication technology, otherwise known as ICT in the industry. And this is to differentiate between these standards that are for websites and softwares and PDFs and office documents, but sometimes you might come across a heat pump on your house that has a little screen. The main purpose of the heat pump is to pump heat into your house, not to transmit information. And so they wouldn't be held to the same standards as the rest of ICT. And more specifically, I'm talking about designers, programmers, developers, and program managers. Each have their own set of responsibilities when it comes to web accessibility. However, it really takes a village to ensure that your applications are accessible and that a lot of barriers are taken down. For developers, we use semantic HTML and CSS. For designers, we ensure color contrast, we ensure simplicity, we ensure the way that a user experiences your application is predictable and easy to understand. And so what is the goal of web accessibility? We're looking to improve the usability and technology for all users. It's not just dealing with people who live with a disability, but everyone stands to benefit from a more accessible web. But we're also looking to ensure equal access for people with a diverse range of visual, auditory, motor, and mobility, cognitive or learning abilities, and seizures. For example, we take into account people who might, when your application doesn't meet the minimum contrast standard of 4.5:1, some people might not be able to see what is on the screen. If you have automatically playing audio on your web page, people who use screen readers might find that very difficult to understand because with screen readers read out what is on the screen, and automatically playing audio interferes with that. People with motor and mobility needs may not be able to perform functions that require simultaneous actions or, dragging and dropping. Those are things to take into consideration. And it helps foster collaboration efforts. The goal is universal design that is integrated and equal. Don't make disabled people use a different web structure, but make it so that they can use it too. Many a times, people who interact with applications that have to change the way that they go about using the web will just go elsewhere and just use a different product that makes them operate the way that they normally will. Let's talk about disability in Canada. I have a graph over a picture of Canada here with prevalence of that tells about the percentage of disabled people in Canada and each province. I'm just going to talk mainly about Ontario, where I'm from in Nova Scotia, and then overall in Canada. Ontario, for the population, there is about 15 and over, 28% of people identify as living with a disability. In Nova Scotia, that number jumps up to 37.9%. That's almost 2 in 5 people. And across Canada, you will see that about 27% of the population identifies as living with a disability. This is an increase of 4.7% from 2017 to 2022. And we are expected to see it rise as we see an aging population happen. So what is assistive technology? Assistive technology could be anything from screen readers, screen magnifiers, reading assistant software, alternate input software and hardware. So who's familiar with Siri? Siri started off as a speech to text and text to speech assistive technology software. Eventually, it progressed with time and became what we know today. And so when accessibility is designed well, it's designed invisibly, but yet we all stand to benefit, whether we have disabilities or not. So if you're interested in making the web a little bit more accessible, I invite you to explore the W3C Web Accessibility Initiative and to follow the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. I put 2.2 up there. You will see conflicting reports. Some people still only follow 2.1. Incorporate accessibility from the beginning of the project. So also, and test your projects for accessibility best practices. When I say test, I mean with automatic tests and with manual tests. I am a big fan of starting with automatic tests and working my way into manual testing because automatic tests don't cover everything. But you'll have tools such as the Lighthouse and AskDevTools. Lighthouse I prefer more because it is free and fully, everyone can benefit from it, but AskDevTools goes into a little bit more depth since it's created by Deck, which is very involved in web accessibility. But manual testing such as NVDA, this is a free software for people to go through their day-to-day on Windows. And JAWS is the similar thing, but it's a little bit more involved. And make sure you're always testing for color contrast. This color contrast analyzer that I have over here is a free software that you can use in order to test your applications. And again, where do you start? Well, the first thing is to actually talk to people with disabilities and include them in your process, and also to pay them, right? Because their experience is very valuable and people will benefit from that. Review the resources, familiarize yourself with the accessibility principles, and then audit your own work. As well as, talk to me, I can help you audit your work. And finally, I would just like to go over some certifications that you can get yourself in order to get your journey started. I myself, I'm a DHS Trusted Tester. That's the Department of Homeland Security Trusted Tester. That is an in-depth training course that takes you through accessibility principles and practical accessibility testing. You can also study for the Certified Professional in Accessibility Core Competencies, which then opens you up to the Web Accessibility Specialist and the IAAP, the International Accessibility Professionals. I forget what the other A is, but the International Accessibility Professionals certifications that will then get you more involved and more specialized in web accessibility. And that was my talk. Thank you so much for coming by. I really hope you learned something today, and I hope to have conversations with you folks afterwards.